Jeet Kune Do Rebel, and welcome to Jeet Kune Do Dialogues episode number 120. So I ripped off the names of a couple of different shows that I watch, and I'm calling this the All Access Ask Me Anything. Impromptu, because my scheduled dialogue partner had to postpone with me yesterday, so decided to do this. All right, so let's see who's chiming in. Bill Matucci from Vero Beach. Hey, Bill, is your county? Because I don't know where Vero Beach is. So, are the beaches opening up in Vero Beach where you are, Bill Matucci? Because they haven't done anything down here in Dade County yet. So I'm wondering. Richard Torres is here. Bill saying from Germany. Terry Valor from the UK. Hey, Russell. Derek John Miller from Calgary. John Doty. Bob Landers from Tulsa. So Bob Landers, if nobody has questions, I was just going to make a comment on something that I thought of. Well, actually, I thought of it during. Okay, so yeah, right, Bill. I know they're opening up in Jacksonville. I'm just wondering if anything. Okay, so all right, so if you guys are observing, Bill Matucci and I, two Florida residents, are talking about the latest developments with the lockdown in our state. So looks like the beaches are going to open up. So if they're opening up north, I think they'll probably open up here in Miami in a while. I'm too old to be out on the beach now, showing this body. So I hope they open up the parks. I can get back to working out outdoors in the park. All right. Yes, I will definitely come and visit Bill Matucci. All right. So these guys are all like senior JKD people. Pedro Rodriguez is here. Right. So none of you guys are going to have any questions for me. So I'm just going to tell you about something. Bob Landers and I last week, we got into it a little bit about the yeah, I have a Speedo, but the Speedo is worn under of a clothing, Bill Matucci. It's not worn where anybody could see it. All right, so Bob Landers and I last week we talked a little bit about JKD books and what have you, and Bob had made a comment along the lines of that there's not so much in Jeet Kune Do that it takes 10 books or what have you, and even if I agree that there's not that much to Jeet Kune Do, and I agree with that only up to a point. My thing is, one of the things that I think is that JKD is an art that requests and requires us to constantly move forward, constantly develop. I know that sometimes people don't like to think. Well, I shouldn't say they don't like to think, but the whole idea of research and investigation and what have you. And I was thinking about this, right? So if you are curious about life in general, and if you are curious about martial art in particular, and you're a JKD person, so can you not be curious enough to go to the point where you actually train in something else, and then cannot that training lead to the adoption of something, or does it have to be only what you got from whatever your Jeet Kune Do source is or was, right? Anyhow, so Mark Stewart is gonna ask me a question to which he already knows the answer. I'm just kidding. How is Jun Fan Kung Fu different than Wing Chun mechanically, structurally, and tactically? Well, Mark, from the little bit that I know, I would say that Jun Fan had stuff in it that was not in Wing Chun. Like, for example, the Gua Choi. The back fist is definitely not a Wing Chun technique. As a matter of fact, right? Tell me what you think of this. The only thing that for a punch, for example, that I have ever heard of in Wing Chun is Jeet Kune, right? That's all I've ever heard of. I've never heard of anything called Choi in Wing Chun. So Gua Choi could definitely not be a Wing Chun technique. And then in Jun Fan, the term used for leg technique is tech, right? So we have Juk tech, Now tech, Jik tech, all the tech. I have never heard of the term tech applied to Wing Chun. In Wing Chun, they have leg, they have Gurk. So to me, but again, I am not deeply, steeped or well-versed in Jun Fan Kung Fu or what have you. That to me indicates that there's way more than Wing Chun in Jun Fan Kung Fu. Chok Choi, for example, which I think would find its way onto the list of Jun Fan Kung Fu techniques, is probably not found in Wing Chun at all. So those would be mechanical differences, I guess, right? Structural differences. But I mean, Richard Torres could probably give us the whole list of different Kung Fu methods that Bruce Lee spent some time training in. But I would definitely say that there's more from that's what I've heard, is that there's a lot of Choi Le Foot into a lot of Choi Le Foot was put into the Jun Fan, right? Or whatever it is that we end up calling it, right? Bob says all that tech stuff came from Inasano. Bob, I thought we'd had a kind of an agreement that we would start referring to Dan Inasano by his proper name instead of this friggin' guru nickname that you have assigned to him. You know, just as a matter of respect, right? The same way that a lot of people end up respecting you because of your position as a Ted Wong student, as a Ted Wong instructor. I thought we had come to an agreement, but obviously not. So Alex Richter showed up. Hey, Alex, I hope everything in New York is going well. I had some disturbing news from a relative in New York, so my heart goes out to all of you guys up there in the epicenter. And just so everybody knows, Alex Richter and I have, he has agreed graciously to come on the dialogues. We haven't set on a date yet, but it'll definitely, well, I hope it'll definitely be sometime in May. And since we're we're on the topic of COVID, I want to give a shout out to Johnny Williams over on Everything is Kung Fu, that Facebook page. Johnny recently recovered from a COVID infection, so you know, glad to hear that, and my heart goes out to him, and you know, a Kung Fu brother there, right? Well, Bob Landers kicked the habit, man. Okay, so you know, if you look at this here now, right? So Bob's saying that pseudo Chinese technology came from Dan Inasano, whatever, right? You know, there's different levels of stuff, right? There's different levels of interest, right? You can become really, 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 you could get really, really deep. So for example, Alex Richter is on here, right? So I'll just tell you guys now, but when he comes on the dialogue, I'm gonna ask him to do it. And if any of you follow Dudes of Kung Fu, you've probably heard him do it already, and you probably heard the story. But one of the things that impresses me, and I don't know Alex Richter very well, but one of the things that impresses me about Alex Richter is the simple fact that when he speaks Cantonese, you could not tell that he is a white guy from New York, right? He sounds just like Bruce Lee sounds, right? So obviously, Alex Richter is a guy that took his love of Kung Fu so deeply that he even learned the language. And I'm sure when we talk to him, we'll find out other aspects of his dedication to the art of Kung Fu and how it turned him into an almost Chinese guy, right? So when you are deeply steeped in something, when you're deeply invested in something and what have you, right? You might seek to not fancify, but you might seek to not even legitimize, right? But you might want to get your stuff to be as close as possible to the original, let's say, right? So Bruce Lee, the radical, might not have, I'm talking and reading the comments as they go by here. Bruce Lee, the radical, might not have given Chinese names to absolutely everything. Now, if somebody decides that they're going to get the Chinese name for every technique that there is, I don't know that that's such a big deal. When I was studying Shotokan, we had no English language techniques for anything. We had to learn the Japanese terminology. So I don't know if it's a big deal if you learn the Chinese terminology for everything it is that you're doing. But if anybody says, well, it's a little bit awkward, right, to try to say Chinese words for everything in JKD, then I would definitely agree with that. But I don't think that it's that big of a deal if you do the research to find out what the Chinese terms are. But I think I would agree that because you know, I was reading this thing from Chris Kent, and it was talking about whether or not Jeet Kune Do is an American martial art or a Chinese martial art or whatever, right? And I know that Bruce Lee has said that, you know, he considered Jeet Kune Do to be a Chinese art. It has a Chinese name or whatever, but it definitely goes past or makes you think about going past the idea of labels and even nationalities and what have you. So I think it's cool the way we do it here in Miami, where your Spanish language is interspersed with your English language and vice versa, right? So if we have some Chinese and some English in JKD technique, I think that might make us unique in the world. All right, so let's see what else is going on here. So once again, okay. Bill Sang says, I heard that Dan and Santa use and introduce the terminology to make it easier. Well, see here, Bill, I don't know. I mean, I never heard that. You heard that, and I'm sure you have verifiable sources and what have you. I think that there is there's an undercurrent, I guess we could call it, where there's this attempt to separate and distinguish Junfan from JKD or what have you, when you know, if a thing was called non-classical Chinese Kung Fu, and then one day the originator decides that he's going to call it something else. So from Friday the 17th, it's called non-classical Kung Fu. And then at 11:30 p.m. on Friday, I decide I'm going to call it something different. So Saturday morning, April 18th, it's now called Jun Fan Gung Fu. How substantially different, other than the name, is what I was teaching the previous week or during that week. And then if a few years later, I decide again, for whatever reason, that I'm going to change the name now from Jun Fan Gung Fu to Jeet Kune Do, overnight, how substantially does the art change? So I don't know. I don't know what I really don't know what the deal is. Doesn't seem to me that it's that big of a deal. So the whole separation between Jun Fan Gung Fu and Jeet Kune Do, and what's what and what's not what and what have you. So, but we'll get into that. I promise you, we'll get into that in a couple of weeks, right? Dan and Asano started using nomenclature to give the impression the people doing original Jeet Kune Do didn't know the material. I love how Bob Landers takes it upon himself to speak decisively and authoritatively on not just what Dan and Asano does or has done, but even the reasons behind it. Bob, I wish that I had the kind of insight that that you had, right? All right, so nobody's got any questions here, so I think okay, well, this sounds interesting. Bill Singh says that by the time the video of Chris Kent was made, wherein Asano says JKD is the ability to flow from a savate kick to a Muay Thai with a Wing Chun travel time, and then that was used to where each component came from. Separate by structure, or whatever should perfect is just because it is right. Yeah. Okay. All right. So to get back to my original point, which was that if people are developing as they go along their Jeet Kune Do journey and through their Jeet Kune Do path, if you are both a writer and by vocation and avocation you are a teacher, is it not conceivable that over the years your understanding, your knowledge, your desire, and your ability to express yourself could develop and or improve? So if that happens, what's the big deal if you write something new, if you write something different? Also, when it it's the reason why writers write. That's what they do. Teachers teach. That's what they do. Just like, you might ask yourself, why does Robert De Niro, right? Which one came first? Goodfellas came before Casino or whatever, or what was the other one? Let's say not Mean Streets, because I don't think De Niro's in Mean Streets. Taxi or Taxi Driver, right? If De Niro played a character who lives in New York in one movie, well, he should never do that again because he's already done that. If he's played a non-Italian character in New York, he should never do that again because he's already done that. But that's not how actors work. Actors act. So if a script comes along and it's something that they're interested in and they're hired for, then they do it again and they do their best to portray the different character, even if the characters are similar or what have you. So actors act, teachers teach, writers write. If you are both a Jeet Kune Do teacher and a Jeet Kune Do writer, you just might be compelled to put out more than one book in your thing, right? Okay, so let me see if anybody said anything interesting. Randy Ciordia. Hey, Randy. Let me go back to Bill Sank's comment, right, about at the time of the blend that was used to illustrate where each component originated from. I'm not, again, Bill, we're not talking to each other, so there's no intonation. I'm just reading what it is that you wrote. And I would say that the idea of flowing from one art to the other was never the thing, as in the art is what's important. It was merely identification of the source. And to me, the idea behind that was to show that in moving against an opponent, in defending yourself against an attack, you afterwards might go, oh, such and such technique that I did came from this place, and this came from this place and this place, and it all just flowed naturally. It's not that in the middle of it. As a matter of fact, as we're talking about this, I remember it. I think it made it all the way into a martial art magazine article where people were talking about how you'd be confused if you train a lot of different stuff. You'd be confused about which stuff to choose to defend yourself, which is probably the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard, right? Because fighting, when it comes right down to it, like to paraphrase Bruce Lee, a punch is a punch, right? And a kick is a kick. So in the heat of stuff, unless you have trained in a very unrealistic way, in the heat of stuff, when it's time to go, you go, right? So I agree with you, I guess, Bill, saying that it was used to illustrate where each component originated from. Yeah, but that was just it. Just let's say giving credit where credit is due. Bob Lander says it's necessary to separate by structure. I can't keep up with the comments, so I'm not sure what you're referring to there, Bob, but it's necessary to separate by structure. I guess if you're talking about the structure of Wing Chun or Jun Fan or Jeet Kune Do, all the way back, that it's necessary to separate by structure. I guess it's necessary to separate if what you're looking to do is to separate them. Whatever you choose is perfect for your school terminology wise. Yeah, just be consistent. Yeah, Randy. I mean, I always thought it was fun, but see, I look, okay, so a lot what Randy says is true because it is a personal thing. So I happen to have an affinity for language, right? I was a terrible student growing up in Barbados when it came to math and science. But my certificates of education, both what we call in the British system, ordinary level and advanced level, are in language, right? And so I was a kid who could speak Latin fluently at one point in my life because we studied classical Latin and what have you. So I have a thing for language, right? For Spanish and French and English and Latin. So when I would get terminology, like for example, Penjak Silat terminology, right? So all of the Latihan Jurus and Latihan Lanka and Jambatan this and Sepak this and whatever. I would always tell my students, look, so here's a name given to it. But I knew that we were not speaking Indonesian language, right? We were not speaking any particular Indonesian language. It was pretty much just what's an Indonesian word for bridge, right? So, okay, so that's Jambatan. So then Inasano will write the word Jambatan and what have you. It was fun to see the language, but that wasn't the important thing. The important thing was in understanding how they applied technique, the reasons behind how they applied technique, and then also what were the commonalities behind their technique and stuff that we had seen in other places. So then that brings you back to the idea or the point of what? A punch is a punch, a kick is a kick, a parry is a parry, right? A hit is a hit. So, but it was fun learning the names. Where did Dan learn the names for the red book? I don't know. People always interchange punching for striking, although they may not be the same. Right, true, Bill. Eventually you will add to it. Just say it's my personal add-on, right? Okay, Derek Miller says, as a toddler in the martial art world, I was like, I hope martial arts is more interested in the root of martial arts and not the different decorative branches. Right. Yeah, Derek John Miller, you're onto something, right? When people become more interested in the root of martial art, then they start to see that there's more commonality and similarity than there is. Look, even in the classical arts, right? In Japanese, in different Japanese styles of karate, everybody blocks like this and blocks like this and blocks like this. So then when you understand the root, then you understand that a block is a block. And, you know, the whole idea of whose style is better than whose style or whatever is ridiculous, right? Brandon Bryant says, I think all of us that are training, Bruce Lee Training Center of the Art need to stop. Right, come together and grow. That's one of the reasons why we do this. But every once in a while, my hackles will rise and I will, you know, say something to somebody. But deep in the heart of me, I think that let's just look at it broadly. Seattle, Oakland, and Los Angeles have more to offer each other, right, by getting together than they do by the BS that Brandon Bryant is talking about, right? Bob Landers says, I have insights into Dan based on what Dan has said and done over the years. Bob Landers, the same way that you sat down with Ted Wong and you were able to talk to him and get his take on stuff, until and unless. So I don't know, Bob, if you ever spent private time with Dan Inosanto, which would give you insight. And in that, and even if you did spend private time with Inosanto, your insights would still be based on your personal belief system, right? So, you know, but I don't know if your insights into that, based on what Dan has said and done over the years, come on, really. See for Nick. Actors act, teachers teach, writers write, and FB argues. Yeah, well, no, I don't argue. Ted Wong emerged and tried to clear up the confusion caused by Dan Inosanto. That is an ignorant statement, right? Because Ted Wong did not clear up any confusion. If Ted Wong had cleared up confusion, then we would not even be having this little mini discussion with you in the comments, making your snide remarks, right? And Chris Kent, now, okay, so Brooks Long says, retracted that thought and statement. Yeah, Chris corrected himself, right? And I think it's a courageous thing. I think it's actually a compliment to him that he has the courage to publicly say, hey, this is how I thought at that time. And then I changed my mind on it, right? Which I think is evidence of what we call continued evolution in Jeet Kune Do, right? So, you know, the earlier and the later don't fit. Anything fits if you like it and practice. Hey, you know, so what's the expression? A square peg in a round hole, right? If you learn how to reshape stuff, you could end up converting a square peg into a round peg, and then it'll fit the hole, which, as I say it, makes me think of something that I heard first from the Oakland JKD people about Jeet Kune Do. It was something like Jeet Kune Do being the key that unlocks other arts or something like that, right? So in the 1990s, it was considered Jeet Kune Do blend. Yeah, I remember hearing that term, you know. But one of the greatest things for me and I stress for me about Inasano is that you know, he's like a real American, right? Where in America you don't impose on other people, right? You give people the freedom to be themselves and think for themselves and what have you. So people might have been calling it the Jeet Kune Do blend. I don't even know if Inasano himself, you know, officially named it Jeet Kune Do blend or whatever, right? But and I may have used the term blend if I was talking to people about the approach, let's say. But the idea of the Jeet Kune Do blend to indicate that Jeet Kune Do is a blend of different martial arts systems, I was never with that. But yeah, I remember seeing that term way before we printed a kickboxing book. I think you're talking. I think you're all talking about Chris. Chris said that he wanted to get the change put into the second edition, but it didn't. If teaching is aimed for students to comprehend, retain, and replicate information. See, for Nick, I'm gonna reprimand, since we're using RE words. I'm gonna reprimand you for using replicate. Right? I think comprehend, retain, and replicate might not be the word, right? But yeah, I'm just teasing you. 1967 Chinatown curriculum is where the confusion comes in. Bob, did you say later? All right, okay. Well, when I get to that, I'll say to you. And then the classical mess ensued. Yeah, sorry guys, I'm way behind you in reading the comments. So so you know, bear with me. My friend Aubrey Lee says, in a fight, one must fight, not stop to dissect and apply labels. Right, exactly, right? In the heat of the moment, right, in the heat of battle, who's going to be thinking, oh, I think I'm going to enter with a straight lead from JKD or from Jun Fan, and then I'm going to follow up with a rear elbow from Muay Thai, and then I'm going to do a Savat kick, and then with all that, and then you'd be dead. So nobody, whether you train Jun Fan, whether you train Oakland, Seattle, or whatever, nobody in a fight is fighting like that. And certainly not anybody who might have been on the receiving end of the JKD blend. And anybody who thinks that is an idiot, right? Okay, so Bob Landers, you've not had any private time with Dan and Asano. So then, if I were you, I would stop speaking. But again, I could be wrong because there's no intonation on the internet. I would stop speaking in what appears to be authoritative terms about Dan and Asano. I'm just saying, but I don't know. That would be me, right? Ted's goal was, I guess you're talking about Ted's goal was to clear up the confusion. I wonder, yeah, well, I guess Ted Wong himself might have said, yeah, you know, people are really confused because of what Dan is doing to Jeet Kune Do. Yeah, let me think about that. Yeah, I could definitely picture Ted Wong, right, saying, yeah, the world is confused by Dan and Asano when it comes to Jeet Kune Do, and I'm here to clear up that confusion. Yeah, I could see that. Oh boy. Did he correct it at all? He did a lot to clear things up and educate on Jeet Kune Do. I will agree with you that he did a lot to educate people on Jeet Kune Do. Oh, for sure. But clear up? No, nothing's been cleared up, Bob Landers, because look at us. We're having this we're having this discussion. All right, so Brandon Bryant says, I like the first one better, Brandon. Be eater, my friend. Did we imagine the JKD concept? Yeah, Albert Kwan, I'm with you. I'm an eater, right? Okay, so Tim Becker, right? I got the name right. We don't call anything Jeet Kune Do blend. Yeah, I mean, okay, I just thought of this, right? The Jeet Kune Do blend, it is a blend of thought. That's what it is. It's a blend of thought. Forget it being a blend of arts or whatever. I'm assuming you have a lot of books on JKD or even martial art in general. Derek John Miller, what would you recommend that be essential? I can't speak for anybody but myself, Derek. So let me show you something. I did this just so I'd have them. So I don't know if the camera can pick that up, but I put this stuff on the stool next to me, right? To show you. Now, if I was really talented, I would know how to get this picture up onto the laptop the way they do it I used to see them doing that in Hawaii Five-0. I would know how to get this picture, all these books onto the screen, and then you guys could see it live on Facebook or whatever. So I can't tell you what would be essential to have in the personal library, Derek, because that's entirely up to you. But message me on Facebook when this is all done, or message me now on Facebook, and I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you about it there, right? Okay, so there's interviews with Insano on YouTube where he says that JKD is not an art of itself, but more like a level of understanding where you could flow from art to art and transcend the notion of styles. So he changed the definition again, being the base system and JKD being Bruce Lee, no level of understanding. God. So, okay, but no mention, I don't mean, just saying these facts of mine. We have guys from the 80s and 90s that started mindset blend and those things. Yeah, well, you know, I don't think, right? If I guess we're not assigning blame to Dan and Asano for other people's confusion. I think the thing to determine would be to ask Dan and Asano if he himself is confused about Jeet Kune Do, if he himself is confused about his expression of Jeet Kune Do, right? I will tell you this, I never, and I've been with Dan and Asano for, where are we now, 37 years. I have never thought of Jeet Kune Do as being a blend of fighting arts. And so when you fight, you blend from art to art, you flow from art to art. That has never been the thing, because even when you're learning shoot wrestling and you learn the rear round kick, right, or the rear hook kick, and you see the shoot wrestling method, and you find out, well, they throw it this way because they don't want it to be grabbed, so they have a twist in it, literally or figuratively. And then you go, well, that makes sense. So now you adopt or you modify your hook kick somewhat with that idea. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you like kicking the way that that you're already kicking, so you don't want to kick the shoot wrestling way. But then you see what shoot wrestling does if their kick does get grabbed, and you go, I like that. So now you didn't change the way you kick, but your strategy for handling the way that the way you respond when your kick gets grabbed, maybe you do adopt that, because you got to know what to do when your technique is, when somebody attempts to counter on your technique or what have you, right? Okay, so I'm gonna go back to what Bill said here. Interviews with Asano, man, I'll tell you, let's see. So if Asano started teaching and traveling and teaching in 1979, that's what, 21 and 20 is 41 years. So he's probably done, let's say he's done one interview, whether it's publicized or not, right? One interview every year. We could find 40 interviews, right, where he's saying stuff. And he might say stuff differently over a 4-decade period. So if there's interviews where he says this and there's interviews where he says that, man, that's, you know what that reminds me of? And both Cass and Chris had told me to take a look at this. If you could find Inosanto interviews from the 70s and then compare them to Inosanto interviews from the 90s and the 2000s, you would see what's what, right? So I wouldn't assign any particular or specific meaning to something that Inosanto said unless I could ask him, what exactly do you mean by that? And then when I hear him say, this is exactly what I mean by that, now I know what he means. But to hear somebody say something and what have you, I'll tell you something that I noticed about Dan Inosanto. Sometimes his answers would be based on, and Tim Becker, Tim, if you're still on, correct me on this if I'm wrong, but sometimes Inosanto's answer is actually based on what he is thinking about, what he may have just experienced. So I'm going to make up a scenario, right? So let's say that he has just come back from a Balintawak session or a Cambodian kickboxing session, and somebody asks him a question. His answer could be influenced by what he had been doing just a little while ago, right? Because what it is, it's a thing of going with the flow. So if he's thinking about something and you ask him a question, he might just go, yeah, this and this and this. And it's because of what he was doing. But now if I ask him a question and he gives me an answer like that, because I am not looking, I'm looking for an answer from him, but I am not looking to Dan Inosanto and whatever answer it is that he gives me as gospel. So this is now something that I write down in my Jeet Kune Do Bible. I'm asking for, out of my own interest, out of my own edification and what have you. Now, I'm not saying, I'm just saying that, what am I saying? Let's call it a quirk of his personality, right? So Tim, if you heard, okay, all right, okay, all right, right? Because you got to understand this about Inosanto, and I didn't mean for this all access to turn into Dwight Woods testifying, since we're talking religious stuff. Dwight Woods testifying on behalf of Dan Inosanto, what have you, right? But here's the thing: Inosanto's brain is like this. You see, it's always going like this. If you understand that, then you're not thinking in terms of, okay, that answer that he gave me, that's the only answer. That's the only way to look at it. That is 100% accurate, 100% truth, or whatever. Inosanto is always teaching, right? Inosanto is always teaching. So if he shows a Pencak Silat technique on seminar, right? And let's say that the host of the seminar had advertised it as a Jeet Kune Do seminar, right? And then Inosanto shows some Kali and some Muay Thai and some Pencak Silat, right? Inosanto is not saying this is Jeet Kune Do. That's not what he's saying at all. What Inosanto is doing is teaching what he's teaching. Now, when you're on the receiving end of that, your job, you see, is to go, okay, how does this relate to the idea of what Jeet Kune Do is? That's your job, you see, because Jeet Kune Do is not this fixed system where it's exactly this or exactly that. And if you doubt me, just read Bruce Lee's writings on Jeet Kune Do, read it themselves, and you'll get what I'm talking about. Inosanto is always teaching, and what he's pretty much always teaching is this: you got to do the work yourself. It's never, here's the cup, right? Drink of the cup, and you have all the answers. Because a lot of us are going to put different stuff into the cup from which we drink, right? So, okay, so I'm gonna scroll back up and see if I missed anything of wait, where did I finish off? Okay, all right. So Bill's saying I'm gonna go through that long comment, and if I think of anything, a better way to reply to it, I'll send you a message. Language of terms to respect and maintain the integrity of the art. Yeah, right. I mean, there's nothing wrong with knowing the terminology behind an art. See, Aubrey says that because Aubrey trained in traditional Okinawan stuff. So of course, every art has its friggin' terminology. So what's wrong with knowing the terminology from a thing? It ain't that big a deal, right? We all go down the path of our own belief system on how Bruce Lee would have most likely have wanted Jeet Kune Do to go. Well, yeah, I mean, Terry, if I remember correctly, Terry, there was a Facebook thing where somebody was telling you about your truth versus his truth versus my truth versus everybody else's truth and this and whatever. So I guess you could look at truth as that, right? Where everybody's truth is different. Or, so that would be like a small t, a common t, right? Or it could be a capital T. Your search might be after the truth with a capital T, which is an absolute thing and not a thing that's subject to everybody's opinion. Because my truth might be that this is the best way to fold my fists and jab like this with two hands. I could say that that's my truth, right? How about if I say, in my opinion, Dan Inosanto, yeah. Have you ever noticed, Bob, how I talk a lot? Because you see me here on Facebook at least twice a week talking. Have you ever noticed how I'll go, so to me, or, well, I think, or to me, yeah, right? It's a little bit ridiculous. And I used to think that I shouldn't have to say it. But when you talk a lot, some people forget that what you're saying is actually your opinion and that you're not, see, it's like the problem that we have in media reporting in this country. Some people we know are opinion journalists, and some people we know are reporters. But then there's that thing where the reports that are being given are reports of opinion. And I can tell you this from personal experience, a lot of people in this country do not know how to differentiate between the two, between true journalism and opinion journalism. But that's a topic for another time. So yes, Bob Landers, please say, in my opinion, and please refer to him as Dan Inosanto. All right. Maybe if more people did what Kent did, it wouldn't be as confusing. Brooks, I know I'm way behind the curve on what you guys were talking about and what it is that I may have said, but if you're referring to Kent having the guts, having the stones to say, yeah, I think differently now, right? You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of the whole ranges thing, right? Because this was something that I had to explain to somebody the other day. So there's a thing about or there used to be a thing, or for some people there probably still is, right? A whole thing about kicking range and punching range and trapping range and grappling range. And then I guess with the coming of UFC, then it became striking, clinch, and ground range. And then who the heck knows what there is now, right? But I remember Cass telling me something about, and if I have the story correctly, it was, see, Bob, that is another qualifying statement that I do. I put the onus on myself because I'm going to tell you about something that, from what I remember, I got from Cass. But listen to how I say it. If I got the story correctly, see, because I don't want to say something here and then some jackass goes somewhere saying, oh, Cass Magda said this and Cass Magda said that. I might be reporting incorrectly. So I put the onus on myself. So if I remember correctly, what Cass said, it was a thing at a nucleus discussion. And instead of kicking, punching, trapping, grappling being ranges, they were called aspects of Jeet Kune Do instead of the ranges, the four ranges of Jeet Kune Do, or the 4 ranges of combat or whatever. These became the 4 aspects of combat. Yeah, that's it, right? And I remember thinking, that's interesting. And I'll tell you, I've told this story before because I used to teach it as kicking being long range and then punching being just inside of long range, right? So middle, trapping being inside of middle range. So it's like middle to close quarter, and then grappling being close quarter, because I got that from a JKD source and it made sense to me at the time. Years later, when Cass says about aspects, I didn't like the sound of aspects of combat. So I changed it within my school to the 4 skills, because I looked at it as kicking is a skill, punching is a skill, trapping is a skill, grappling is a skill. So for me, it became the 4 skills of combat. And then those 4 skills can be applied at 3 ranges: long, middle, and close quarter, right? So now that brings me to another thing. So this idea, it's over in the other office. But this idea of ranges, right? That there's long range, there's middle range, and there's close quarter. That is true, except for when it isn't. Because, see, if you spend some time in Kali, then you discover that there's long range outside, long range inside, right? Then there's middle range, then there's close quarter, then there's the lateral in fighting range, and then there's the rear in fighting range, right? So that's what gives you the ability to ask a question that is a beginner level question. Then there are questions that are intermediate level. There are questions that are advanced level. And in the same way, similarly, there are answers to questions that are beginner level answers, intermediate level answers, and advanced level answers to questions, right? Right. Okay. So Tim says, there are really so many people confused. I see before COVID-19, hundreds of student level people and hundreds of instructor level people, and not seeing anyone confused. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know. This confusion about Jeet Kune Do, it might be a thing that yeah, like Tim says, right? So before COVID-19, people had the luxury of indulging in all kinds of nonsense. And then COVID-19 came along and made people step back, take a pause, and start to think about what's really important, like toilet paper, right? So this whole idea about people being confused about Jeet Kune Do might actually be a ridiculous thing, because if we look at the percentages, right? And I was just researching percentages about, it's a morbid topic, but percentage level mortality rates of due to COVID-19. So that's why I'm thinking about this. If we look at the percentage of people in the world who are interested in martial art in general, and then we look at the percentage of people in the world who are interested in Jeet Kune Do specifically, we might find out that the percentage for Jeet Kune Do is like so small, there's not even a space between my fingers. And so this whole idea about who's confused and who's not confused, maybe, maybe not. I could be wrong. There could be a lot of people who are confused. But in any case, I think when and if we do come across somebody who's confused about it, then we do our level best to help them with that confusion, right? So JKD sounds like a bad protein shake. Isn't JKD blend a term that Inosanto himself used? Quite possibly, right? But then as so I can't read this name, so, but he says the principles are master key. The blend is more of a subconscious approach to flow. So I'll tell you this, right? So here's one of the most insightful things that Inosanto has ever said. And he says this all the time. Tim, correct me, right? He probably said it the last week that he was in class teaching. And it is the whole idea about technique. If you get the technique, you get one thing. If you get the principle behind the technique, then you get it all. That is another way of saying, don't concentrate on the finger or you miss all the heavenly glory, right? So Inosanto was right there with Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon, right? Okay, so books fits in there. Jack Dempsey's boxing book are all Bruce Lee or read and cited. Dan certifies them. They got this terminology from him, whatever, right? Get Dan Inosanto on here. Yeah, Paul, I wish I could get Inosanto on the dialogues, but as of right now, that's not a thing that's going to happen. Right. Okay, Bill saying, yeah, send me a link. Reconcile contradictions. Oh, whatever, right? Hey, Michael Brown, how you doing? Greg Wilson says, people can't blame Dan for doing what he thought was best for him. Well, obviously, Greg Wilson, there are people who blame Inosanto for whatever, I guess for like confusion of Jeet Kune Do and what have you. And I can tell you, because I have spent private time with him, I can tell you that Dan Inosanto's intention was never to confuse anybody about anything. I'll tell you another thing. Dan Inosanto's intention was never to make money off of Bruce Lee's name. I'll tell you another thing. Dan Inosanto's intention was never to proclaim himself as, or to be viewed as the guy with all the answers, right? Now, somebody will say, oh, but there's a magazine article where Dan Inosanto says, I'm the only one who this and who that, right? Well, here's the deal. He is, to a certain degree, the only one. Look, you know what? Let me not even say that. And I don't want to pull it out of, the thing. I'll send you guys to search for it because it showed up on Facebook just the other day. It is the letter, and Paul Bax had something to say about it. It is the letter written to Bob Guccione from Penthouse by Inosanto, talking about the Bruce Lee exploiters and what have you. So dig this, right? This is how my brain works. Chris Kent, a few days ago, had the eggs to say, I'm rethinking how I used to approach whatever, right? Dan Inosanto, in this letter to Bob Guccione, establishes his credentials. And he says that he had a close relationship with Bruce Lee. Here's what he does not say. That's what he says. Here's what he does not say. He does not say, I was Bruce Lee's closest friend. I was Bruce Lee's best friend. He says, in fact, that other than Taki Kimura, his senior in Seattle, and Ted Wong, his junior in Los Angeles, he had a close relationship, right, with Bruce Lee. So he gives credit. He readily admits that Taki Kimura had a closer relationship and Ted Wong had a closer relationship than he did with Bruce Lee. If Dan Inosanto wants people to believe and think that he is the source, right? Why write that in a letter? And not just why write it in a letter, why have the friggin' letter published in a book, right? Because if you want to impress upon people that you are the man, then you never, right? You never draw attention to anybody else. It's in this book, right? Let me see if I can find it here. Yes, there it is. I should establish my credentials as a student and friend of Bruce Lee, right? I believe I have a better knowledge of and insight into Bruce Lee's history than others in the field, with the exception of Taki Kimura, my senior in, I have like a photographic memory. Exception of Taki Kimura, my senior in Seattle, Washington, and Ted Wong, my junior in Los Angeles, California. Why would Inosanto put that into a book if he wants everybody to think that he has all the answers and all the insights into Bruce Lee and all matters related to Bruce Lee? That's not it. So he would be very bad, right, at trying to rip people off. Okay? All right. So you become a professional 27 years out of hosting training, don't talk about it. Right. Yes. Right. Okay. Bob Landers, what do you say? Ask Chris about the time Dan made up a combination spot and then he in rehearsal, and then he said this is what Bruce said. You just made this up. Why did you say that? Yeah. Oh, okay. So you know how well, let's imagine a situation, right? Let's imagine that there's a country and the head of state, the leader of the country, right? The elected leader of the country. Is this really kind of a obnoxious guy who's not like a professional politician? And so there are some people who just cannot stand him because he came from the business world, not from the political world. So he's not polished and he's not he's not a good politician or whatever, right? He's kind of a buffoon. He kind of, like I do sometimes, his brain, if it's working, doesn't keep up with his mouth, right? So he says stuff that gets him in trouble all the time. So let's imagine that we have such a scenario. There are going to be people who will hear him say something, and there are going to be people who automatically and immediately are looking to take him to task for it. And then there are going to be people who hear what he says and they think about what it is that he says, and then they try to put it into its best light as opposed to putting it into its worst light. So Bob Landers is talking here about Inosanto makes up a combination on the spot. He teaches it, and then he says, this is what Bruce showed us, right? And then Chris says, you just made that up. So why did you say that? And Inosanto says, if I connect it to Bruce Lee, they pay attention better. Right. Okay. So I'm going to tell you something. Because there's a number of things happening here. So you could hear that and you could interpret it this way. Well, Dan Inosanto is a liar because Dan Inosanto is making stuff up and then saying that he got it from Bruce Lee. So he is intentionally misleading people so that they think that he is the only one who can give them the truth about Bruce Lee and Jeet Kune Do, but he's actually a liar, and Chris Kent just proved it, or Chris Kent is questioning it, or whatever. You could do it that way. And I am sure there are a lot of people who have done it that way. Or you could do it this way. You go, Inosanto, relax on that stuff. You are a great man on your own account. You don't have to connect it to Bruce Lee. You could say, this is my thing. You could stop, you have to stop believing that if you connect it to Bruce Lee, or if you connect it to Johnny Lacoste, people will pay more attention. But if you tell them that it's your thing, they're not going to think that much about it. Now, why would Dan Inosanto do that? It's because he knows there are people who do that. He knows that there are people who were just interested in him because of his connection to Bruce Lee. So he said, okay, so if I want to get a point across to them, I'll tell a little white lie, and I'll say that this came from Bruce, and then they'll pay attention, and then maybe they'll be inspired to continue seeking and ultimately really get the message. So it all depends on how it is that you want to interpret the stories that you hear. If you're looking for the worst in it, then you'll put a negative spin on it. If you're looking for the best in it, then you'll put a positive spin on it. If your intention is to just let things be what they are, you will put no spin. Sometimes I put no spin. Sometimes, because I have spent private time with Dan Inosanto, and because I have insight into, even though my insight is colored by the way my brain works, right? I understand why he does that. Now ask me a question. Do you agree with him doing it? No, I do not agree with him doing it, even though I understand why he does it. So I don't put a nefarious reason behind him doing it. I get it. But if somebody says to me, Dwight, be 100% honest about when Inosanto does stuff like that, what do you think? How do you feel? I don't like it. I get it. I don't like it. But I have done the same thing. Right? I've done something similar. There are stories that I tell to make a point. And the essential point is to bolster the confidence of my students and to give them a lesson in how to change your mind, how to change your way of thinking. And so there's a story that I tell, which is a little bit embellished, okay? If I told the regular story, but if I tell the embellished version, invariably people go, oh, I get it. And that's the intention. So that's what I have to say about Inosanto making stuff up. Yeah, you could think it is the worst thing in the world to do something like that, right? Inosanto's article was spot on while Bruce Lee was alive, but something later changed. Yeah, Richard Torres, I think something did later change between May of 1970, while Bruce Lee was still alive, and I'll make up a date, right? Let's say May of let's see, I joined him in 83. 10 years later, May of 1980. Okay, I'll make this up. Here's something that could have changed. He's in Chicago at Degeberg Academy, and he does a Kali demonstration. And then he asks some of you may have heard this story before. And then he asks the audience if they had any questions. And somebody asked him, after he had just done a Kali demonstration, whether or not he was trying to make a name for himself off of Bruce Lee. So that's something that could have changed his approach to things, right? Sifu Nick says, got a copy, love to see it. I'm not sure, because I'm way behind in the comments, Sifu Nick, so I'm not sure what you're talking about. Inosanto's book in 1976 was really good. Right? Yeah. See, Richard, that's an opinion that you share with me, with Cass Magda, and with Chris Ken. And so I tell people, if you really want to get it, well, and unfortunately it's out of print, right? But if you really want to understand Inosanto's outlook on Jeet Kune Do, go back, right? Before the mess was as big of a mess as it is, right? In that book, which I have here, but I don't want to pull it out, right? You'll see where he says that it was a letter from, well, one of the things was a letter from Steve McQueen that says, I don't think it would be commercializing for you to do your thing the way that Bruce was doing his thing. Because that's one of the things that sometimes I think people don't really pay enough attention to. The fact that there's this whole thing to this day, about commercializing Jeet Kune Do, right? I remember back when I was intending to start a Jeet Kune Do business development program for instructors. And so I started putting feelers out and what have you. I had a guy from Italy tell me that I was a raging fool, right? That it's impossible to make money in Jeet Kune Do. As a matter of fact, I think we talked a little bit about this with Bob Landers last week, right? So here's the thing, right? Yes, because, okay, so Jeremy Gordon, he was the one that said it. And Jeremy, we've never met. He's been on the Dialogues program, but I love that guy. That guy is awesome. But Jeremy said something about it can't be, Jeet Kune Do cannot be taught to kids. Now, he didn't go into a big explanation of it or whatever. So I'm not giving you the full context or whatever. I'm just reporting the words that he said, right? If he and I had a discussion about it, then he could elaborate, embellish, and what have you. But the statement, so let's just take the statement at face value that Jeet Kune Do is not for kids. You know what I say to that? I go, you ever seen a picture of Bruce Lee training Brandon? If the originator, right, of Jeet Kune Do showed some stuff to his little son, to me, that means Jeet Kune Do can be taught to kids, right? So here's what you do. It's how you teach it. It's what you teach, right? So do we take away, we take away the finger jab, right? And the kick to the groin, okay? Because here's the thing, right? If Taekwondo has been proven to be of benefit to kids, why don't we just have as close as we can, not as close as we can, that's the wrong expression. Why don't we look at what it is that Taekwondo does to pass the art on, to transmit the knowledge of the art, right? We look at that and whatever it is that we see that works and that makes sense, we absorb that. But we don't teach them Taekwondo techniques. So I'll tell you something. So I have, and I'll probably put it on video for the tutorials next week. I have a kick-in drill. Watch this, right? So there's talk about the Jeet Kune Do kick-in set, right? There's the Ung Moon set and there's the JKD kick-in set and what have you. I don't think I ever learned the kick-in set. As a matter of fact, Bob Landers was nice enough to send me pictures of it the other day, but I never learned the kick-in set. So here's the deal. What is the essence behind the kick-in set? What is the essence behind the Ung Moon? All I got to do, right, the essence or the principle, all I got to do is to abide by the principle. I can make up my own 5-gate set, 4-gate set, Ung Moon, whatever the heck it is, right? I can make up my own kick-in set. I borrowed from my Taekwondo friends a kick count drill thing, right? I used to be a Taekwondo fool. See this? Right here, right? Where's the other one? No, that's in another pile, right? But all those books, the Chong Lee books, the James Liu book, all that stuff. Anything on kicking, Dwight Woods was there. I was a kicking fool like Forrest Gump, right? So, but I could create my own thing. Now, if my intention is to prove to people I am the man in Miami, you come to me for Jeet Kune Do, nobody else would ever, whatever, then I want to go, oh, and here is the moon set. I have it. Those other guys don't have it, or whatever, right? That's not going after the essence of things. That's not getting to the root of things, right? Okay, why are we talking about this? Anyhow, I forget why we're talking about this. Yeah, well, what? So, Inosanto's book in 76 is really good. So I am probably way, way, way behind. To break things up. Okay, Derek John says, and I don't know if you guys are still on here with me talking like a moron. Me talking like a moron, not you talking like a moron, okay? To break things up, what's your top 5 martial art memorabilia aside from your shirts? All right, top 5. I'd have to think about that. One of them is right here. One of them is right here. So see this? This is the Olisi Palad, or Tabak Malay. This is older than a lot of you that are on here. This is from 1983. This is the second pair of Kali sticks that I ever got, right? And now it's this. So like they say, a good stick never dies, right? You start out with the 26 or the 28 or the 22 or the 24-inch stick or whatever, right? And then when the tip starts to fray, you cut it. So now you might have 2 12-inch sticks, so now you have a daga, right? Or if it's too shredded, you might end up with a daga and a palm stick. So a good stick never dies. So this is actually one of my top pieces of memorabilia. Another one is this magazine. Okay, this is Fighting Arts, March 1976, I believe it is, right? Another one, it's over in the other office, but it's a magazine. It is May 1987 Esquire magazine. It's an article by George Leonard on mastery. It's actually probably an excerpt from his book on mastery. That's 3. What's the 4th one? 4th one is there are these embroidered polo shirts with the JKD in embroidery, the JKD logo, and then the name Inosanto on it. And I think Inosanto had I think these date back to Inosanto, to the Bruce Lee time period, right? So he gifted that to me. So that's 4. I guess 5 could be, since we're talking about gifts. In 1983, when I joined, I went out. I trained for 2 weeks. Fell in love with with everybody there, and flew back home to Barbados and bought like 12 souvenir sweatshirts, Barbados souvenir sweatshirts, and went back out to LA for another week and took those as gifts to everybody. And in return for that, Inosanto gave me all 4 of his books. I didn't pay for them, but he did charge me for a school T-shirt, right? He said, because the money from the school T-shirt goes to the school, the money from the books go to me, so I'm giving you the books for free, but I got to charge you for the school T-shirt. And then somebody lost that first T-shirt or whatever. Okay, so yeah, so I don't have. I mean, I got a lot of stuff from, but those are the 5 that came to mind. Derek, Bob Lander says, much of what I say is my opinion. Bob, look, I know that, right? Okay, and you know, and look, people might see me go after or hear me go after Bob Landers, but Bob he's one of those people that I consider, you know, one of my boys, right? Even though he might get on my nerves a little bit, to use a Bajan expression. Don't think for anything. I'll say it again publicly. my appreciation for what Ted Wong brought to the Jeet Kune Do world. Even if I'll argue with Bob about confusion and what Ted Wong said and what Ted Wong meant and whatever, right? Forget all that. I appreciate what Bob Landers has done for me in terms of giving me insight into the message behind Ted Wong's approach to Jeet Kune Do, right? So if anybody has a problem with me and my opinion on you, Bob, you just send them my way and I'll straighten that crap out, right? I always called him Dan Inosanto. Yeah, keep calling him Dan Inosanto, right? Oh, okay. So when I began going to the center, they told me to call him Guru, but okay, but no, right? So I'll disagree with all of them, right? Anybody, but no, let me. Okay, it depends on when they came along, right? So I don't think you will. Well, no, you know what? Everybody says it now. I was going to say I don't think that any of the old timers call him Guru Dan or Guru Dan, but I think a lot of people do, except me. I do not call him Guru Dan. I do not call him Guru Dan or whatever, because he is my Jeet Kune Do teacher. That makes him my Sifu. So that's what I call him, right? Sifu Inosanto. That's it, right? Long, middle, and close are more generic. Man, I am really behind on the comments, Bill Matucci. We were talking about this like way long ago. Different ranges are theoretical since a change can happen very quickly. Right, yeah, so I was making the joke about in Kali about the ranges, right? So, okay, so we have Largamano, we have Tabon, we have, we have Largamano, we have Fraile, we have Tabon, we have Puño, we have Tabi, and we have Lakud. What Bill is saying here about ranges being theoretical since a change can happen very quickly, that Fraile is a transitional range between Largamano and Tabon. And it's a thing that can change very quickly. Just like Puño to Lakud, you go through Tabi, can happen very quickly. So we are talking in a JKD context here about ranges. And I am using a Kali concept on stick fighting, right? Or weaponry. And we're trying to get to the same understanding, right? But it's still a thing, right? So I'm way behind on the scroll, Brooks, so I'm not sure what that is referred to. Change based on body type as well. Build punching range is my kicking range. No, Bob Landers, I don't agree with that. Punching range is my kicking range because of body type. No, here's the thing. Let's simplify it. There's long range, there's middle range, there's close quarter, and then there's skills. You can kick at long range, you can kick at middle range, and you can kick at close quarter. So the skills can be applied at any of the three ranges. So it doesn't have anything to do with body type, right? A person with shorter limbs will still have his or her own long, middle, and close quarter, and the skills. A person with longer limbs will still have. So everything is connected to everything else, right? Jeet Kune Do is the one practitioner's art. Einstein said, if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it. Yes, right. If you understand the principle, why can't you get him on here now? He's stuck inside. Let me tell you, there's more than one JKD person in Los Angeles, Bob Landers, who is stuck inside that I cannot get on the Jeet Kune Do dialogues. There's more than one. Yes, and I would love to bring him on here and let all of you guys see it. Sean Foon says David Tadman. Yeah, so okay, so David Sasha Tadman. Sean, if you know him personally and you could reach out on my behalf, that would be awesome, to use a California term, right? Bill Matucci says, I have transcended all this nonsense. Yeah, I'm there with you, Matucci, right? He said it years ago when he reprinted his kickboxing book. I think that's referring to Chris. Everyone does on that. Magazines and editors and things do get changed. Sometimes the changes don't do the intention of the person faithfully. Yeah, Tim, that's a good point, because I was not even aware of that. I was not aware that back in the days of Inside Kung Fu, you might write something in an article and then the editor edits it because it's like, oh, if we say it this way, then it will spark a little bit more controversy, and we might get more sales or something, right? John Overall, I'm not sure if that's somebody that Bob Landers is recommended. Okay, so we're talking about friends. Clarity. Eric Rodriguez. Eric always says the nicest things to me. The context of all that in regard to making up a combination, saying it was from Bruce Lee and on. Yeah, be honest with students, there are better ways to get their attention. Yeah. There might be better ways, and being honest with students, yeah. And that's why, and again, I don't know what your name is because you've got letters of a thing there. That's why I called it a white lie. And you can see how silent I've gotten on it, because you're right. There are better ways to get their attention. So this is me openly admitting that there are things that there are things that approaches that my instructor has used that I don't think he should have used. Okay, so you could call that a criticism, a down insanity if you want to. It's not. To me, it's an observation, and I have said it to him. But his way is his way. But I don't get bent out of shape when, and Chris Kent obviously didn't get bent out of shape either when he does it. It's just a thing that he would look. I tell you this, I guarantee you there are things that I do and the way that I do them that my students like Miguel and Glenn, that they wish that I didn't do it that way, or I didn't say it that way, or what have you. I guarantee you, right? So yeah, but again, I won't say, and this is where I'm defending him, I won't say he is being dishonest. He's not being 100% honest, right? So obviously I'm trying to defend him here, but he's not being absolutely dishonest. He is well-intentioned, but I think that, yeah, that doing it differently could still affect the desired result. So yes, I agree with you. His outlook and point of view really hasn't changed from his book on JKD. That's true, Tim. To the martial arts public, it might appear that it has, because again, go back to the Guru and Guru Dan thing. A lot of people apparently call him that because, as I've heard it said, they have come to him through the Filipino martial arts. You see, right? Now, when my first lesson with him was in double stick. So you could say that I came to him through the Filipino martial arts. You could say that. But I never went to him for the Filipino martial arts. I went to him for Dan and Asano education. So whatever it is that he was teaching was fine with me. I knew I could make sense of what it is that I was getting. So I agree strenuously, Tim, that his approach to Jeet Kune Do has never changed, but it would appear to have changed. But anybody who is, let's use the expression, an Inasano insider, an Inasano intimate, would know that his approach, his idea, his point of view on Jeet Kune Do has not changed, even if his approach has changed. Kind of like there are other ways to make yourself heard other than showing up in the forum of someone who has a white audience and criticizing or badmouthing everyone. Yeah, Albert. Leave the groin kick. Brandon Bryant says leave the, again, I apologize, guys. I am way behind on the scroll of the comments. Brandon Bryant says leave the groin kick in. I guess that's referring to the kids and teaching the kids. All right, I'll tell you something here, right? Because if you may have seen the Jun Fan kickboxing tutorials that I put up on Instagram and what have you. And I call them Jun Fan kickboxing instead of calling them Jeet Kune Do, because I use them as a base for developing striking ability and for developing a certain degree of cardiovascular endurance, right? So that's why I call it Jeet Kune kickboxing. If somebody said to me, well, is that Jeet Kune Do? That is an aspect of Jeet Kune Do. That is not the totality of Jeet Kune Do. That is an aspect of it. And we give it a name, as they say in Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead. We give it a name, and that name is Jeet Kune kickboxing. And actually, I was influenced in that by my senior, Blaise Loom, who wrote a 1987 article in Black Belt magazine entitled The Jeet Kune Martial Arts. And you want to talk about LA people that I can't get on the show, even though they're in lockdown, right? The kicking set is something we teach little dragons. Moon is a set of curriculum notes that Sifu Nakamura combined in his JKD class, right? Okay, yeah, right, yeah. So some people do Moon and some people don't, and that's another thing, right? So people would say, well, Bruce Lee said, you know, that kata was a waste of time. That's another one of those things where I think, right, as if I have the power, right, to talk about what I think Bruce Lee should have said. Bruce Lee should have said, well, for me personally, kata is a waste of time, rather than making an all-encompassing statement like kata, as in for everybody in the world, is a waste of time. But now it depends on how it is that you want to approach it. I understand that Bruce Lee was saying that for him and not for everybody in the world, because Bruce Lee was not an idiot who would think that that he could speak for everybody. He was given his opinion. But there is always going to be people, right? There's always going to be people who are trying to assign the worst connotation that they could think of to things that other people have said. Why? What is the point behind that, right? So some people get something out of the Moon, and some people are like, whatever, okay? As long as, why do I even have to tell you this? You know, everything in its place. So I remember when I was training in Wushu Quan in Barbados, I remember the day that they said, try to use the forms in your sparring. And that was one of the first times that I realized, the kata don't work in the fighting. Right? But that's what they said. They said, try to use your forms in the sparring. And it didn't work. So that was one of the things where I was like, okay, there's something to what it is that I'm reading about Bruce Lee and what he's saying. And that was one of the things that spurred me on and what have you, right? Bob Lander says, I really like Dwight, even if I disagree with him at times. I like you back, Bob Landers, right? JKD. Tim, you must be on your phone. You young kids, always, everything for you guys is in this thing here. I hate it. And Nick Faruqi is sending me a message now. Let me, right? Okay. So, Russell wants to know, how is my Flora Villabrail shirt? Oh, Russell. Yeah, Russell, I'm sorry. That is true. The Floraville, actually, you know what? I will wear it next week, Russell, when I film, when I do the Kali tutorials. Okay, all right. Sorry, forgive me. Right. Bo Jackson says I teach it to my students. I would love to teach the version. I would love to teach you the version I learned. And since I never had what you mean. All right, Bo Jackson, we will definitely set that up. Hey, Zane Isaacs, what's up? Right, Michael Cheeseman, man. But Cheeseman, I hope if you're still on here, I hope you came in when I was talking about Wushu Quan and training in Barbados and what have you, guys. Michael Cheeseman is he and my brother were in a music group in Barbados together, and they played in a group where I tried to teach myself on the drums from the drum set from that group, and I see that name, Michael Cheeseman. It's just like good times, right? Come flooding back into my mind. Terry Valor, he said in the early 2000s they had 4 books in the work, but nothing has come out. Yeah, a conversation I had with Sifu Dan about writing books is that, and if I remember correctly, he said that by the time they come out, he might have changed his mind. He might have moved on to something else. So now the book that's being published is no longer a true and accurate representation of what of the stage or the point that he is at. And so if somebody was to ask my opinion on that, it would be like, nah, man, put him out. Put him out. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter if the book, because these things take time. So yeah, so it might take you a year to write something and you might have a different opinion or whatever. That's why my business mentor, Dan Kennedy said to me, whenever you put out something, always call it volume 1. The first thing that you put out, always call it volume 1. So Inosanto could do that. He could have done that with actually, didn't he? He did do it. Inosanto's smarter than all of y'all, right? See this? Volume 2. Because volume 1 is this. See? Right? So he could have been continuing to put stuff out and just update and just call it volume this and volume that. Right? Okay. If you shadow box a pre-planned combo or movement, you're practicing kata in a sense. I do it all the time. I'm not fond of it, but it's obvious that shadow boxing is one of the most important training methods a person can use. Yeah, so, right. So we all learn preset stuff so that then ultimately we can freelance. So there's pre-arranged and free-arranged. And then there are varying levels and points within that whole sequence of pre-arrange and free-arrange. I'll give you an example. Right, watch this. See, this is the Jeet Kune Do blend mind at work. Right. In boxe française training, there are sequences where the attack is pre-planned and your response is not, or an aspect of your response is pre-planned, but then there's an aspect that is not. You see? So, but essentially, the kata, if they did it the right way, and to me, the right way is what we do, which is shadow boxing. We shadow box, and this actually turns out to be something that I will put on video next week as well. When somebody watches you shadow boxing, and then you do what I call fill in the blanks. So what that means is that here I am shadow boxing, and I'm doing whatever. And then a person appears in front of me and he's holding the focus mitts. And there is now no difference in the way that I move. And then he disappears and another training partner appears in front of me. And now we're both gloved up. The way I move when I launch at him is no different yet. And then I'm in the ring and I'm fighting, right? Like Zayn Isaacs has trained many people to fight. And you watch me move and try to win a fight, a belt or a trophy or whatever. And the way I move is just like the way I moved in the shadow boxing. Kata is not like that. So maybe that's why now I'm going to presume that I could speak for Bruce Lee. Maybe that's what Bruce Lee meant. Maybe Bruce Lee meant that kata, the way they train it in the classical systems, does not approximate the reality of the situation. But maybe he found that boxers, in the way they move, right? So the way that a boxer hits in shadow boxing, then he takes the way he hits and he hits the heavy bag, it looks the same. And then the coach or the trainer or the feeder, they do a round on the focus mitts, it looks the same. And then he goes in the ring to fight, to make his money, it looks the same. Maybe that's what Bruce Lee was talking about. You see? So now in the JKD world, shadow boxing becomes the thing. But is it a kata? Yes, because you might teach your students to shadow box, jab, cross, hook. So that is a pre-planned sequence. Does that mean that they never do anything but jab, cross, hook? Does that mean, because I know I just thought of something else, right? Because we were talking about training kids and whatever, and we know that kata is part of the belt requirement, right? In the classical systems. So maybe in our Jeet Kune Do curriculum, we do have preset patterns, but we also have this. We have a sign up in the school that says essentially that now I'm gonna mess up the quotation. Richard Torres, help me, right? That all fixed patterns are incapable of flexibility or pliability, right? The truth is found outside of fixed patterns. We have that sign up in the school, so we know that we are teaching a fixed pattern. But we know that we're teaching the fixed pattern at a particular level of the student's development. We're not teaching fixed patterns to advanced students who know what they're doing. But you do have to, it's like Burt Richardson says, his outfit is called what? JKD Unlimited. You think that a beginning student with Burt Richardson is unlimited? Hell no. You do have to limit them. You do have to tie their hands, so to speak, at a particular level of their development. Later on is when they become unlimited. But you cannot start. Look, it's just like the whole daily decrease and daily increase thing. You can't start decreasing with somebody who knows nothing. How the heck you, well, you can, because in the new math, which I told you earlier, I sucked at. I gave up math when they went to the left of zero. I was like, what is this minus crap going that way, right? No, so I gave up math. So I guess you can subtract from zero. So a new student comes in and you tell them, well, you know, we're Jeet Kune Do, and in Jeet Kune Do, what's important is the daily decrease. It's, you know what that reminds me of too? It's the whole thing about, well, I don't believe in teaching. I don't believe in style. I can't really teach you anything. So, you know, well then why the hell do I have a school? If I don't believe in style, and if I don't believe that anybody can teach you anything, that's bogus. That's ridiculous nonsense. Of course I can teach you. Okay, now, in saying that, I am not saying that everybody learns the same way and that there's only one way to teach all your students. If you suck at conveying the message, it's not the student's fault, it's your fault. You got to know. And that's another thing I learned from Inosano. Inosano says, you know, like you'll, again, Tim, if you're still on, right, Tim could verify this. Inosano says in the beginning, he tells people to warm up so that he can gauge the levels, the different levels that are in class with him, right? Now, I'm going to tell you something about that. But don't tell anybody that I told you this. When Inosano says, right, and this is another example of how you can attach a nefarious impulse or reasoning behind whatever it is that you hear. When Inosano, let's say we're in Atlanta at the Train with the Masters, and he says, okay, so I'm going to give you guys 5 minutes to warm up. And then he says, because I've heard him say it more than once, right? And then he says that, you know, that gives him a chance to see the different levels in the room. Maybe, maybe not, because maybe he recognizes most of the faces in the friggin' room. So he knows the level of the people because he's very observant. He is no moron. Dan Inosanto is one of the most astute human beings I have ever come across. And I have lived a long time, and I have traveled a lot, and I have come across a ton of people. You understand me? Right? So he doesn't need for people to warm up and so he could check the level and whatever. He knows the level. But it makes sense. The point that he's trying to make is this, and here again, I'm lecturing and talking on behalf of Dan Inosanto, and nobody has ever asked me to defend him. But you've heard him say that if you only have one way of teaching, if you don't know how to structure your stuff so that everybody who is in front of you can get it, then it's your problem, right? You suck as a teacher. He would never use those words. Those are my words, right? And it's true. And that makes me think about curriculum structure for a school or what have you, right? So here's the thing. Here's something that I think a lot of JK, and nobody asked me this, so why am I talking about this? I'm supposed to be answering your questions, not going off on a thing. Improvisation is the key, contrasting element. Oh, another Barbados buddy, Richard Wells. Oh man, well, that's another name. Richard and I grew up together at St. Mary's Church. Richard and I used to hang out with the St. John and St. Anthony's girls. Oh man. You see what I just told you guys, right? I've lived a long time and I have traveled a lot and I've been around what have you. Bob Landers, yeah, that Joe Louis Black Belt manual, if you can tell me how to get my hands on one of them, then for sure. So Bob says you teach someone form. Okay, let me scroll down to everything and just make sure. You had great natural instincts for grappling, but couldn't strike a match as a champion. In fact, opposite blitz fighters and grinders. All right, okay, all right. Tim says he does that for seminars for sure, right? Okay, made a point again last week when talking about improving against. Wait, Bill saying has a new appreciation of Joe Louis fighting forms. Everyone has to have no limitations, but also understand their own. You teach someone form so that they can become formless. Yeah, Bob Landers, it's the different, Brucey himself said it, the difference between having no form and having no form, right? Yeah, but there's no intonation on the page, right? So, okay, so there's nothing there that I really have to comment on. But Bob, if you can tell me how to get my hands on a Joe Louis Black Belt manual, I'm down, right? Okay, so let me just say this, and then I think we can wrap this up. The thing about Jeet Kune Do curriculum, I saw this way too often, and I am pretty sure that it still happens. Trying to teach beginner level people trapping hands. They can't hit, but you're trying to teach them trapping. Why? Because maybe you were at a seminar last week and Inosanto showed trapping. So now you're trying to show them split entry, you know, to Paksao Guachoy, right? And then, you know, inside Paksao, whatever. Bogus, don't. Instead, you listen to Richard Bustillo. Richard Bustillo told me, and I've said this on camera before, Richard Bustillo told me, teach him how to hit first, Dwight, right? Teach him essentially offense before you try to teach him defense or whatever. So what do you think? Somebody comes to you and somebody wants to learn from you, right? If you say to them, okay, so what's trapping? You're gonna go, oh, I don't know, I'm not a hunter, right? You go, what's grappling? Now, because of the UFC and the proliferation of BJJ and MMA and what have you, they might go, that's jujitsu, right? But who would not know if you say what's kicking and what's punching? Everybody knows what kicking and punching is. So you start with what they know, even if they can't do it. You start with what they know. Plus, the whole kickboxing thing, the whole kicking and punching thing, the whole what I call Junfan kickboxing, introduces them to the idea of synchronization, because you got to become self-synchronized first. So that takes us back to what? Look at what the karate people do. How do they teach self-synchronization? Even though they might not be so sophisticated as we are in JKD to understand that that is what they're doing. They teach it through kata, right? The kata is what people do to acquire the form, the proper form behind the techniques. All right, so we're doing the same thing. But we might call it shadow boxing, and it might be preset shadow boxing stuff, simple stuff. You know, 2 punches, 3 punches, right? 2 punches and a kick, 1 kick and 2 punches, or whatever, right? Not even a 20 motion kicking set or what have you. You know, maybe not even that. Or maybe you do that, you know, for whatever reason, you know, it's something that Bruce Lee put together, so this or whatever, right? Do it however it is that you want. But you start them with the simple stuff, the kicking and punching stuff, because everybody knows that. And then when they are self-synchronized, now you can take them to the second stage of synchronization, which is synchronization with an opponent. So part of that is moving around, still kickboxing, with a training partner. Right? So now they're getting the basics of offense with a training partner. You're becoming less static and more dynamic. You're becoming more mobile. All the important things, right? But because we are not taught in JKD how to identify, because a lot of us are trained on seminar, right? And on seminar, on seminar, there's different levels of people in the room. So now Inasano teaches stuff for all the different levels. So I think, oh, since I get this stuff from Inasano on seminar, I am going to take his seminar curriculum and make it my curriculum identically at my school. Wrong, wrong, wrong. I have to be smart enough to determine what aspect of what it is that he taught on the seminar is beginner level, what is intermediate level, what is advanced level. And part of the way that I learned to identify that is by reading all the friggin' books on Jeet Kune Do that are out there. Books by Bruce Lee or by John Little, or however it is you want to look at it. Books by Chris Kent, books by Tim Tackett, books by Kevin Seaman, books by Dave Carnell, books by Bert Richardson. Bert, you see what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to call everything without even looking at them, right? Books by everybody that has written a book on Jeet Kune Do, because there's something that you can gain from all of them. Oh, and guess what? I don't even have to read friggin' books. I can just go on the YouTube and there they are all over again. But that's how I develop what I'm doing in my curriculum. Because guess what? That's what the successful karate schools do. You do not teach the black belt material to the white belt. But in JKD, we try to throw everything at them day one. It's like I see people trying to teach Sombrada to somebody who has been with them for 6 months, trying to teach Chisao to somebody, right, who's been there 6 months. Forget that nonsense. Forget that nonsense, right? If you have a sophisticated curriculum, and by sophisticated, I do not mean complicated. If you have, let me put it to you this way. If you have a sophisticated approach to your curriculum, if you know how to teach, if you know how to tap into what it is that your people want from you, you can keep them for a while, right? Now, the way human nature is, the average student is not going to spend a really long time with you. That is a given. But does that mean that you just accept that? No, it does not mean that you just accept that. You develop ways to turn people from average, right, into not merely above average, spectacular. Why? You know why? Because they want to be spectacular. You find me, right? I dare you. What would it? Double dare you. You find me a person who deep down inside, as deep down as you can get them, right, wants to be average. Find me that person. I guarantee you, you cannot. So when they come to you, Chuck Norris taught me this, okay? You want to see Jeet Kune Do blend? Chuck Norris taught me this. I don't know if you've heard the story. When I worked in the airline industry, and Chuck Norris was coming through, and my supervisor said to me, actually the manager said to me, all right, well, just babysit him, you know, during his 1 hour layover or whatever. So I sat down and taught martial arts with Chuck Norris for 50 minutes, right? And Chuck Norris said, it's all about helping people. It's all about helping people to develop themselves, right? So this is the thing. That's why they come to you. And they come to you. Some people do come for Jeet Kune Do. Some people do come because of Bruce Lee. Some might not, right? But dig this, right? And I know I'm ranting here again. Zane Isaac says I'm preaching, right? Right? I know I'm ranting here. And this is what happens when I can't keep the thoughts, right? Everything in sequence. It is called the flow. They come to you because they want to improve. That's your job. Your job is to help them along the path. You have to have a sophisticated approach to doing that. It cannot be haphazard. If it is haphazard, then you will get nowhere. And Jeet Kune Do will always be the thing that, the school that fails, the school where you got to have these other things in order to make money at it. You got to water it down, right? You got all this stuff. And that is all nonsense, because what you should do instead is study what the successful martial arts schools do. And you want to hear something? This is the thing. This is one of the things that pisses me off about Jeet Kune Do people. If you study what the successful martial arts schools do, you will find out that they have a blended curriculum. We already friggin' have it, you see, but we don't appreciate it because we have other Jeet Kune Do people, right, being all disgusted by the blend this and the blend that. See, now understand this. I am not saying that your Jeet Kune Do school is now supposed to be a Jeet Kune Do class, a BJJ class, a this class, a that class, whatever. You can do that if you want. It doesn't have to be that way. What I'm saying is that we should be ahead of the curve, because the sophisticated martial arts schools will borrow. And where do you think they get the idea of borrowing from other arts from? They got it from us, right? Even if they don't know that they got it. But I can tell you, the Taekwondo school down the street from me that was teaching the sticks, right? Not that they literally got the sticks idea from me, right? But the idea of training double stick at like their black belt level or in their black belt club or any of that nonsense, that idea came out of the Jeet Kune Do world. And it didn't come out of the Jeet Kune Do world directly from Bruce Lee. It came out of the Jeet Kune Do world because of Dan and Asano. Whether you like it or not, whether you want to accept it or not, that is where it comes from, right? So enough said about that. Anyhow, let me just get back to this. The idea of a sophisticated approach to your curriculum. You got to sit down and work that stuff out. You got to sit down and work. What is beginner level? What is intermediate level? What is advanced level? What is very advanced level? And then teach accordingly. Do not try to teach somebody who can barely hold a stick. can barely stroke like this, can barely hold their hands up, can barely do footwork, and you're trying to teach them trapping and chi sao and whatever. That stuff comes later. That's where it belongs. It belongs in later. Okay. I'm going to quit there because I'm probably talking to myself by now. I just realized it's 8 o'clock and there are no questions in the feed or whatever. So I will stop preaching. I hope this, I'm probably talking to nobody now. Everybody's got something better to do while they're in lockdown. So thanks for hanging out and listening to me rant and rave for 2 hours now. This is ridiculous. Let me just finish this up and tell you. So Phil Cruz, who was supposed to be on with me tonight, asked me to postpone him until next week. So dig this, right? So those of you who stayed on, right, dig this. Next week will be fairly busy. So on Monday, I'll film tutorial stuff and probably start putting them out on Tuesday or Wednesday. But next Wednesday, I might move the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast up a little bit because Ken O'Neill is going to do Jeet Kune Do dialogues with me on Wednesday. So Ken O'Neill is another one of my, along with Neil Colliff, is actually, I met Ken O'Neill my first week in Irvine in '83, and then I met Neil Colliff, my Jeet Kune Do best friend, in the second week. So I've known Ken longer than I've known Neil. Ken's going to come back on to the dialogues with me on Wednesday. Then on Friday, Phil Cruz from Unlimited Martial Arts in Brooklyn, he'll come on Friday. On Saturday, my Jeet Kune Do seniors, Chris Kent and Bert Richardson, have agreed to come on, and we're going to do so. So today was the all access Ask Me Anything. Next Saturday, I think it's at 6 p.m. Miami time. Chris Kent and Bert Richardson will come on with me, and nobody really emailed me questions or anything for today, but I hope you will email me questions. So it'll be like a Jeet Kune Do town hall. So we'll have the two of them on stage, and I will be the moderator off stage. Don't ask me no stupid questions, because no stupid questions will make it past my moderating skills. I will have some questions myself for them. There are issues, Jeet Kune Do issues that they want to and topics and subjects that they want to talk about, but I'm encouraging all of you. So those of you who are here tonight are hearing about this first. So email me, start emailing me, or Facebook message me or whatever, right? Email me at jkdrebel@gmail.com, and we will, I'll start collecting all that stuff, right? So Wednesday, I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast, probably around 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. Then 6 p.m. Jeet Kune Do dialogues with Ken O'Neill out of St. Louis, Missouri. Then Friday, Jeet Kune Do dialogues with Phil Cruz out of Brooklyn. And then on Saturday, the Jeet Kune Do town hall with Chris Kent and Bert Richardson. Okay? All right. So that is the deal. All right. So follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods and on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods. ILoveJeetKuneDo.com, Quick Skill Series Volume 1. I told you, first thing you do, make it Volume 1. Still available. Volume 2 will be produced during 2020. Subscribe over on the YouTube to both the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast and the YouTube channel. Please do subscribe, guys, even if you don't watch the stuff over there, because I am trying to make it to 1,000 subscribers in both channels, so that then I can get into the what do you call it, the YouTube partner program and what have you. So if you do that, go to jkdrebel.com, click on the Rebel gear. If you want to support the program financially, consider making a purchase there or whatever. We got some cool t-shirts and stuff. What else? I'm not reading this. I'm trying to do this from because I had no notes for today, because you know, I had nothing to discuss with you, right? So the best thing you can do is to spread the word about the program, both the Jeet Kune Do dialogues and the I Love Jeet Kune Do broadcast, right? And I think that's it, right? So thanks everybody for hanging out with me. Richard Wiles, good to hear from you. Michael Cheeseman, good to hear from you. I hope everybody's doing fine down in Barbados. I haven't been home in a long time, so that is going to have to change. And I think that's it, right? Until I do another rant, right? Until I do another rant. All right, everybody out there, stay safe, stay sane, stay healthy, stay happy. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel, signing off. Take care now. Talk to you soon.